Hello, in this video I will be breaking down the calculator application on the TI-Nspire CX technology. I will be working with the calculator application and not the Scratchpad Calculate. Though you can do just about everything in the Scratchpad Calculate, I prefer the calculator application for document usage. So let's begin by selecting number 1, New, and selecting number 1, Add Calculator. I am now in a calculator application. I am on problem 1, page 1 of my document. I can see that I'm in degree mode. If I wish to change that to radian mode, I can just click on degree and it becomes radian. I can go back and forth just by clicking on it. It's important to know that the TI-Nspire technology is menu driven. So if you click menu, a drop-down menu will appear. When I'm in my calculator app and I press menu, I have 9 options. I'll close this menu by pressing escape. If I press this little button that looks like a calculator on the go, that's Scratchpad. I am now in the Scratch calculator. If I press menu while in the Scratchpad calculator, notice I only have 8 options here. Again, I prefer to work in the calculator application over Scratchpad simply because it offers everything. So I'll press escape to close out of this menu, and then I'll press escape to turn off Scratchpad. I'm going to do a quick calculation. 8 times 5. When I press enter, I get my result of 40. Now, many people like to clear their screen after they do some work. If you wanted to clear history, you could go to Menu, select number 1, Actions, and number 5 on this menu item says Clear History. Now again, we did 8 times 5, enter, and we got 40. Another way to clear your screen is to simply go Home, select number 1, New, and say, do you want to save changes? No. I can select Add Calculator, and I have a clear screen this way. I encourage you to play with both options to see which method you prefer. Fractions. For years on the graphing calculators, we've been doing fractions by typing in 3 divided by 5. And we've taught students that this little slash for division is a fraction. We press enter. On the TI-Nspire technology, we have math print. Fractions will actually look like fractions. So we recommend that you use the fraction icon. Control divide is that template. I could now type in 6 in the numerator, 8 in the denominator, and when I press enter, auto simplification appears. If I need to see that as a decimal, I see the approximation symbol above enter. I can then press Control Enter, and it will take my fraction and make it a decimal. Another way of achieving this is by putting a decimal point someplace in your fraction. I'll put 4 in the numerator, and I'll put 12 decimal point in the denominator. I'll just press enter. Because I put that decimal point in my fraction, it automatically approximates my solution. More fraction tools can be found in Menu. Number 2, Number. Number 1 has Convert to Decimal. Number 2 says Approximate to Fraction. Also, number 7 says Fraction Tools. In Fraction Tools, we have a Proper Fraction feature. If I select number 1, Proper Fraction, and in the parentheses, I put Control Divide for my fraction template, 8 in the numerator, 5 in the denominator, it will take my improper fraction and make it a proper fraction 1 3/5. Order of operations and parentheses. For this example, let's be an Algebra 1 student who takes 3 tests and wants to find their average. The first test is an 88, the second test score is a 72, and the third test score is a 65. If they did not know about order of operations, they know they have to add them up and divide by 3. Unfortunately, 65 is the only number being divided by 3 and not the quantity of 88, 72, and 65. When the student presses enter on the TI-Nspire technology, it shows the math that's truly taking place. Only 65 was divided by 3. So this is not your answer. If you wanted to see that as an approximation, the approximation symbol is above enter. So I can press Control Enter and see that that student's average doing it this method would be 182. So we should use parentheses. What I like to show is that if I tried that again, 88 plus 72 plus 65, and realized that I need parentheses after I type that all in, I can hit the close parentheses after the 65, and it bookends the parentheses around my entire quantity. I could now press divide 3, and when I press enter, I see the entire quantity, 88 plus 72 plus 65 divided by 3, and that my average is 75. Let's look at that parenthesis tool once more. 3 times 5 plus 4. If I now hit the close parentheses, notice the closed parentheses is dark, and the open parentheses, where the calculator assumed I wanted it, is in gray. I could navigate using my arrows on my touchpad to just before the 5. If I hit the open parentheses there, it will position that parenthesis so that the 5 plus 4 occurs first, then multiply by 3. When I press enter, I get my order of operations solution. The test feature on the TI-Nspire technology. We can do 5 plus 3, press the equals button, and then type in 3 plus 5. This would demonstrate the commutative property over addition. When I press enter, I get an output of true. Perfect for students to see if this is commutative over subtraction. 5 minus 3 equals 3 minus 5. When they press enter, they'd get an output of false. Besides just properties, the test feature can really work on number sense. 3 times 4 equals 20 minus 8. I notice located above my equals key some inequality symbols. So let's test out some inequalities. 5, and then I'll press Control equals. I see greater than, less than, not equal to, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. I'll select less than, and let's go with 4 plus 2. And I can test out inequalities. However, something that's really neat in this equals menu, Control equals, is this bottom right option. This is a such that symbol. And the way it works, I'll press escape to go back to my main screen. I could evaluate 2x plus 3, Control equals, select such that, and then put in x equals 5. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 3 is 13. So this is a such that symbol located in your equals menu. If you wanted to do multivariable, you'd first type in your expression. Let's go with 2x minus 3y. I'll now do the such that, control equals, navigate to the such that symbol, select it. I'll put in x equals 4. I'll hit the space bar located beside the letter Z. I'll type in the word and. Notice, as I'm typing and, the first two letters, A, N, are italicized. As soon as I press the D for and, it becomes regular font. This is quite similar to many computer softwares. Once it recognizes a command, it will show it by having regular font. Spacebar, Y equals -1. If I press enter, I'll get my result of 11. Let's look at evaluating an inequality using this test feature. Y control equals is greater than 2x plus 1. Many times students are asked to test a point so they can determine which way to shade on a graph. We could use the such that symbol and say that x is 0 space and space y equals 0, testing out the origin for this graph. This says false, so we would shade the opposite side of 0, 0. The such that symbol is nice because it only substitutes in that value for the variable for that one line. On previous models of TI graphing calculators, you've probably learned about storing a variable or defining a variable. The store feature is located above the var button. So in the past, I would recommend 12.3 control var to store that value into the variable x. Another way is to define a variable. I could do this by starting with x and press control and this little templates key which has the colon equals. I could set this equal to a value. Using the store feature or define a variable feature will keep that value in the variable for the duration of your document. Whenever I use X throughout this document, it will appear in bold. That means there is a value stored into the variable. If I were to square it, since 3 was the last value placed into the variable x, I will get 9. So the question now comes up, how do I get rid of that value stored into the variable x? You could start a new document, which would clear all history and all variables, or go to Menu, choose number 1, Actions, and choose number 4, Clear A through Z. When I select OK, that has now cleared all variables. A really cool feature with the store or define variable, I'm going to do 12.3 control var, that's my store feature, and I'll store it into the variable x. I now will have the problem x squared minus 5x minus 6. I'll choose the equal sign, open parentheses, x minus 6, close parentheses, open parentheses, x plus 1. I have defined my variable to be 12.3. It will calculate the left-hand side with 12.3 stored in for x, with the right-hand side 12.3 stored in for x, if I have factored this polynomial properly, I'll get a true response. The store or define a variable feature combined with the testing tool on the TI-Nspire can really be a great asset. Distributive property: 2 times the quantity x minus 3, close parentheses, equals. We want our students to multiply 2 times x and 2 times that minus 3. Hopefully they get the outcome of 2x minus 6. When they press enter, this will confirm what they do by hand. I want to now multiply the quantity x minus 6, close parentheses, times the quantity x plus 4, close parentheses. I'll put in my equal sign. I know that x times x results in an x squared. X times that plus 4 will be plus 4x. That minus 6 times x will yield minus 6x. And the minus 6 times that positive 4 will give me a minus 24. When I press enter, I get a true. Now that answer is not in simplest form. It has not combined like terms. I can press the up arrow on my touchpad twice. Press enter, and that serves as a copy and paste. I can then use my arrow to navigate, and I can combine the 4x and the minus 6x to give me minus 2x. And when I press enter, I can see that I have now multiplied properly. Let's try simplifying a radical. Control square root, which is the x squared button, 8x raised to the 7th power. Now I need to right arrow once to get out of my exponent, and right arrow a second time to get out of my radicand. I'll set it equal to 2x raised to the 3rd power, right arrow to get out of my exponent. I need that square root 2x. Keep in mind, it's putting in 12.3 for x, evaluating the left-hand side, evaluating the right-hand side. If I have done it correctly, I get an output of true. Now let's shift our focus to the Math Templates and Catalog buttons on the TI-Nspire. The Math Templates key is located directly to the right of the 9. This will be a one-stop shop for all of the math templates on the TI-Nspire. We'll have fractions, exponents, roots, e to the power, log of any base, piecewise templates, absolute value, degrees, minutes, seconds, matrices, summations, derivatives, integrals, and even chemistry notation. If I were to select the log of any base, I can choose a base, right arrow, put a value within the parentheses, press enter. See the power of exponents come alive by putting in 3, raised, press the up arrow once to be able to copy and paste that answer into the exponent position, and when I press enter, I get 12. Let's go back to our Math Templates key. This time, I'll navigate over and select the Definite Integral tool. I'll go from 0, tab, 3, tab, and my expression will be x squared, tab, with respect to x. When I press enter, I get my value of 9. Let's go back to that templates key once more. Let's find the absolute value tool, select it, and I'll put in the absolute value of -2. When I press enter, I get my result. Now before I was talking about commands that the calculator understands. Absolute value is usually ABS on TI graphing calculators. So if I type in A, B, notice that it's italicized, and when I put in the S, it recognizes that as absolute value. I'll put in open parentheses, -2, and when I go to press enter, notice that it changed it to the proper notation. Just another way to do the same thing. Now, the other side of your Math Templates key has a picture of an open book. This is your Catalog button. Let's press Catalog. The chapters of your catalog are at the top. You can go from one chapter to another by pressing the number associated with that chapter. I am in Chapter 1. Chapter 1 has all of the functionality for the TI-Nspire technology in alphabetical order. Pointing out at the very bottom, you see the syntax for every feature on the Nspire. So if I wanted to do something with permutation or combination, NPR, NCR, I'd press the letter N. I could then press the down arrow and I will find NCR. And I can see the syntax for how to use this feature. If you wish to go back to the top, simply press the letter A. I'll press the number 2 to go to the second chapter of my catalog. The second chapter of the catalog is a lot like Chapter 1, but now it's organized into groups. The little plus signs means that you can expand that folder. So if I press enter, the number folder is now expanded to show all of its features. Press enter when back on the number with the minus to collapse your folder. Chapter 3 is a conversion assistant. Use this to determine how many seconds are in a day, how many inches are in a mile, and how many cubic inches are in a cubic foot. To demonstrate this, let's first escape out of the catalog. Let's put a numeric value here on our calculator. I'll put in 1. I'll go back to the catalog, and one really nice feature is that it leaves it on the page that you were just on. I'll select Conversion Assistant, and I will right arrow to engage my drop-down. I see that I have the options of length, area, volume, time, velocity, temperature, and mass. But wait, there's more. Force, energy, power, pressure. I wish to see how many inches are in 1 yard. That falls under length. I'll select length, and I want to go from 1 yard to inches. When I select OK, the reason I put that 1 in there is so that it knew how many yards we were beginning with. So 1 yard equals how many inches. When I press enter, I get my answer of 36. Let's try this again. Let's see how many hours are in 2 days. So if I start with 2, I go back to the catalog, select Conversion Assistant. Because I'm dealing with time, I'll engage the drop-down and select time. The first is the from. I want to go from to days. And I want to go to hours. How many hours are in 2 days. When I tab on down and select OK, I see that there are 48 hours in 2 days. I'll go back to the catalog. Now I'll select number 4. Number 4 is an insert symbol, very similar to that of Microsoft Word insert symbol. So you can scroll through all of the options, and I like that it tells you the name of each of these options. Chapter 5 should look very familiar. This is your Math Templates feature. It is right here beside the catalog. And Chapter 6 is your library. Unless you're doing a lot of coding, you probably will not use Chapter 6 very much at all. Let's press Escape to get back to our calculator application. Now let's focus our attention on the trig button for trigonometry. We see when we press the trig button, sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, cotangent, and all of their inverses. I'll select sine, and I'll put in 30. Now because I'm in degree mode, 30 is 30 degrees. When I press enter, I get my 0.5. I'm going to click on degree and make this radian. I'll repeat this process. Trig, select sine, I'll put in 30, but because I'm in radian mode, I get this answer. This is why I strongly encourage, whenever doing trigonometry, to include the degree symbol. Many students aren't focusing on what mode they're in. So if I were to do the trig button, sine, 30, and the degree symbol is located in this pi menu. So when I press pi, I see the degree symbol in the second row. I'll select it. Now even though I'm in radian mode, it says sine 30 degrees. When I press enter, I'll get my 0.5. Teaching students to use the degree symbol, no matter what mode they are in, will cover all of your bases. Let us now focus our attention on the menu button. The Nspire is menu driven, so we can choose number 1, actions, and we see our options: define, recall definition, delete variable, clear A through Z, clear history, insert comment, library, and lock. I'll hit on a few of these that might be helpful in the classroom. Let's select number 1, define. I can now define a function f1 of x, close parentheses, equals 2x plus 3. When I press enter, it says done. Now I can press my VAR button, my variable button, and I see f1 of x. I can now put in 3, and it will evaluate the function 2x plus 3 when x equals 3. Again, var, select f1, I can put in a numerical value, and it will evaluate it for me. Let's go back to menu, select number 1, actions, select number 1, define. This time, f2 of x, close parentheses, equals x squared. Enter. It says done. Now I can go back to my var button, select F1. Go back to my var button, select F2, and I will substitute in 5. When I press enter, I've just done a composition of functions. Let's go back to menu, select number 1, actions. Number 2, recall definition. I've defined F1 and F2. If I select F1, it will show me F1 of x, and I could make modifications if necessary and press enter. After the modification's been made, I can scroll up in my history to my composition of functions, f1 of f2 of 5. And now when I press enter, it will be changed based on my modification to f1 of x. Let's go back to menu, back to actions. We've gone over define and recall definition. Earlier we did a clear A through Z, and we did a clear history. So the question might come up with, why even have a delete variable? Maybe you only want to get rid of one of your variables, or the TI-Nspire allows you to have variables that are more than one letter. So having the delete variable option allows you to specifically delete what you want to get rid of. I'll escape out of this menu, and now let's focus our attention on the number menu. Number 1, convert to decimal, and number 2, approximate to fraction, are very straightforward. Number 3, factor. Let's focus on that. Factor allows you to do prime factorizations of the value that you enter in. So again, menu, number 2, number 3, factor. This will not factor a binomial or a trinomial. This will only do prime factorizations of whatever you enter in. Back to menu, back to number 2, number 4, least common multiple. And it has the LCM. You can now put in your first number, comma, second number, and when you press enter, you'll find your lowest common multiple of the 2 digits that you put in. Back to menu, back to number 2, number 5, greatest common divisor, or GCD. I'll put in 42, comma, 50, and when I press enter, I find my greatest common divisor is 2. I'll go back to menu, back to number 2, number, and let's now go to number 8, number tools. I see here, number 1, round. This is something that many students can struggle with, how to round appropriately. Now, I'm not sure how to use the round feature, but I've already covered that if I escape out of all these menus and I go to the catalog, back to chapter 1, R for round, and I scroll down until I see the command round, I see that you put in the value, comma, the number of digits you want to have displayed after the decimal point. So now that I have the syntax, I can select it by pressing enter. I wish to round 3.145, comma, and if I want to round to the nearest tenth, that's 1 spot after the decimal. Hundredth is 2 places after the decimal. So I'll put 2, and I'm hoping for a result of 3.15, and it has rounded for me. Again, if you're not sure how something works, the catalog has the syntax at the bottom. Select it. I'll go ahead and put in 3.145, comma. If I wanted this round to the nearest tenth, I'll put in 1 spot after the decimal, and I'll get 3.1. I want to clear my screen. A shortcut for clearing the screen is a right-click on the handheld. A right-click on the handheld is achieved by pressing Control, Menu. Number 1, Clear History. Let's go back to Menu now and select number 3, Algebra. We have 3 options: numerical solve, solve systems of linear equations, and polynomial tools. Let's start with number 1, numerical solve. I'll enter in 3x plus 8 equals 2x minus 9. I will now put in a comma and tell the calculator which variable I'm solving for, which is x. When I press enter, I get my solution of -17. Let's practice this nsolve tool. Menu, Algebra, number 1, numerical solve. I'll start with a fraction, control divide. 3 over x, right arrow to get out of the denominator, equals, control divide to get another fraction, 4 over 24. I'll right arrow to get out of the denominator, put in a comma, tell it that the variable we're solving for is x, and when I press enter, I get that my solution x equals 18. The first two examples were degree 1 problems. Let's now see how it changes when we make a degree 2 as our problem. Press menu, choose number 3, algebra, number 1, numerical solve. I'll put in x squared minus 5x minus 6 equals 0, comma, x. Now, if I press enter right now, I get the solution -1. Degree 2 problems, however, usually have 2 solutions. So, I'll go back to the drawing board, up arrow twice, press enter to copy and paste. I'll left arrow once to get just inside that closed parentheses. A degree 2 problem, you can add a restricted domain to look for a solution. Is there a solution from -10, comma, 0? If a solution exists from -10 to 0, that will find it, -1. Up arrow twice, change my domain to go from 0 to +10, and when I press enter, I find the solution is 6. Now, what happens if we look for a solution in a restricted domain that doesn't have one? From 10 to 20, no solution found, which is a great response because there is no solution from 10 to 20. Perfect practice makes perfect. Let's go back to menu, back to number 3, algebra, back to number 1, numerical solve. Let's type in x squared equals 9. We have to tell it the variable that we're solving for, which is x, and then the restricted domain, as this is a degree 2 problem. If the student tries to do -10, comma, 10, because both solutions fall within that restricted domain, they still will only get one solution. So they cannot try to outsmart the system to have it give both solutions at one time. So from 0 to 10, the solution is 3. Up arrow twice. Now let's change that restricted domain to be -10 to 0. And we get our -3. Nsolve is wonderful because you can enter it in any format. It doesn't have to be equal to 0. You can have a left-hand side and a right-hand side, and you can give it restricted domains to look for specific solutions. I'm going to clear my history, go back to menu, select number 3, algebra, and now focus my attention on solve system of linear equations. The default is number of equations 2, variables x and y. You could change this to 3 equations with 3 unknowns if you needed to. I'll select OK, and I now have my template. I'll type in x plus y equals 10, tab, 2x minus y equals 11. I see the x, y is my solution set, so when I press enter, my solution set is 7, 3, x is 7, y is 3. the solution to this system of equations. Clear my history, control menu, number 1, back to menu, back to number 3, algebra, and this time I will select polynomial tools. I'll select number 1, find roots of a polynomial. Degree 2, my roots are real, and I'll select OK. I see my template, and I'll put in the coefficients so that I have my representation for my equation. 1 for a sub 2, negative 5 for a sub 1, and I'll put in negative 6 for a sub 0. I'll select OK, and there is my trinomial x squared minus 5x minus 6. When I press enter, I get my solutions negative 1, positive 6. Let's do that one more time. Menu, number 3 algebra, number 3 polynomial tools. Find roots of a polynomial. Degree 2, roots are real, we'll select OK. I'll put in 1 for a sub 2. I'll put in negative 2 for a sub 1. And I'll put in negative 24 for a sub 0. I'll select OK. There is my trinomial, x squared minus 2x minus 24. And I find my solution set is negative 4, positive 6. Remember, NSolve. NSolve allows you to put your equation in any format, but you had to put in the restricted domain to find your solutions. Polynomial tools, the polynomial root finder, will find both solutions at once, but you must have it in the standard form. I'm going to clear history, control menu, number 1, go back to menu, and now choose number 4, calculus. I will select numerical derivative at a point, number 1. The variable will be x, tab. I can define the value where we'll find the derivative. Let's go with 3. It will be the first derivative, and I'll select OK. I now have my template for taking the derivative at a point. I'll put in 2x squared plus 6. When I press enter, I get my solution of 12. I'll go back to menu, back to number 4, calculus, and this time choose number 2, numerical integral. Let's go from 0, tab, 3, tab, and I'll just put in x squared, the area under the curve from 0 to 3 of x squared with respect to x is 9. Back to menu, back to number 4, calculus, number 3, sum. I have my cursor already in the first position, so I'll say x, tab, 0 is my lower value, tab, 100 is my upper value, tab, x. I want to find the sum of all numbers from 0 to 100. I press enter, and I get 5,050. Control menu, clear history, back to menu, number 5, probability. We see our factorials, permutation, combination, and more. I'll select number 2, permutation, and I can say 5, comma, 3. 5 is the n, 3 is the r. Press enter, and I get my solution of 60. Back to menu, back to number 5, probability. This time I'll select number 4, random, and I can have a random number, random integer. I'll select number 2, random integer, and I always like in the classroom to roll a die virtually. 1, comma, 6, and when I press enter, repeatedly, I am rolling a die getting a random integer from 1 through 6. The statistics feature in the calculator app only works if you have put data into your list and spreadsheet. I'll be making another video for statistics. Matrix and vector, finance aren't features that are used that often. And the functions and programs, I've already made other videos for functions and programs. Please see them on my YouTube channel. I hope after watching this video you feel much more comfortable with the calculator application on the TI-Nspire technology. Feel free to contact me via email at dmorse@ti.com and visit TI's website, www.education.ti.com, for lots and lots of free resources.